What if I told you the Epstein story never ended? It just changed names. And what if the one name they tried to erase was hiding in plain sight the entire time? Because this isn't just about Jeffrey Epstein anymore. This is about who came after him.
I'm in the files for not going, because Jeffrey Epstein was trying to meet with me.
Oh, I did see that.
Yeah, and I was like, what?
You're like, no thanks.
Ellen DeGeneres built a television empire around a simple phrase, be kind. But now, with the Epstein files surfacing, Ghislaine Maxwell sitting in a Texas prison with meals delivered to her cell, and Joe Rogan saying what the mainstream media avoids, a question keeps coming back and it refuses to disappear. What did Ellen actually know, and why did she leave? To understand why this matters, you have to go back to who Ellen really was. For more than 2 decades, she stood as one of the most powerful figures in American entertainment. Not just a talk show host, but a brand, a symbol, the woman who came out in the 90s, rebuilt her career from nothing, and became the face of warmth and positivity in the mainstream. Be kind to one another. That was her signature closing line. But then everything started to unravel. One by one, stories came out painting a completely different picture. People began saying Ellen had lost everything, that she fell apart, disappeared because the persona she played for 30 minutes on television wasn't who she truly was. The collapse went public in 2020 when former staff members began speaking out about a toxic workplace culture. But even then, something else was already taking shape behind the scenes, something far bigger than accusations of being harsh to employees. Because at almost the exact same time Elon's show was falling apart, Ghislaine Maxwell was being arrested. On July 2, 2020, FBI agents moved in on a property in New Hampshire. Maxwell, who had been in hiding for months after Jeffrey Epstein's death in 2019, was taken into custody. Prosecutors charged her with recruiting and grooming underage girls for Epstein, and in some cases being directly involved. The trial that followed didn't just make headlines, it sent shockwaves through Hollywood. And the question people couldn't stop asking wasn't just who Ghislaine Maxwell was, but who she had been working with. Court documents began to reveal pieces of that puzzle. Maxwell was ultimately convicted and sentenced to 20 years in federal prison. But what surfaced during the legal process was, in many ways, even more disturbing than the verdict itself. According to newly filed documents, Maxwell claimed that 25 individuals, described as Epstein's friends and associates, had been protected under secret settlements.
I found out that Ellen was mean, and all these people came out and said, Ellen's actually she lost everything. She fell apart, disappeared, because people found out that this character that she was portraying in a half an hour on a television show is not really who she was.
And the person who made those markings, the one who could have explained exactly what they meant, is no longer alive. That's where Joe Rogan enters the conversation, and where the internet suddenly went into overdrive. Rogan has never been subtle when it comes to questioning Hollywood's elite circles. But this time, his comments about Ellen DeGeneres landed differently, because he wasn't just joking around. He was connecting dots in his usual chaotic, stream of consciousness style. The same dots many people had already been quietly connecting on their own. The only person who reportedly saw Stephen Paddock alive, a man named Jesus Campos, was a security guard at Mandalay Bay. He didn't sit down with major news outlets. He didn't give interviews to investigative journalists. Do you know where his first interview happened? On Ellen. And that struck people as strange. Now, Rogan and his guests present this as something worth questioning, not as a confirmed fact, and neither are we. But the observation itself sparked a massive wave of online debate. Why would the only eyewitness to one of the deadliest mass shootings in U.S. history choose a daytime talk show for his first interview instead of a news network? People noticed. And once they started noticing, they began looking at everything else through a different lens. Again, this is Rogan riffing jokes layered over something that feels But even the more extreme theories, like the so-called CIA asset angle, don't just come out of nowhere. They trace back to broader discussions about how Jeffrey Epstein's network was alleged to operate. The idea that powerful individuals weren't just participants, some were facilitators, connectors, people who could bring the right names into the same room at the right time. And what was Ellen, if not someone who brought powerful people together? This is the part critics keep returning to. Not her friendships, not just her connections, but her behavior on camera. Because once you start watching those clips closely, a pattern begins to emerge, and it's hard to ignore. Ellen had power. Real power. The kind that made celebrities politicians and public figures sit in that chair and answer questions they clearly didn't want to answer. And some researchers who've studied Epstein's network have pointed out something unsettling. That this mirrors a documented pattern, quietly assessing powerful people for vulnerabilities, watching how they react, noticing what makes them uncomfortable, identifying what they never want exposed. Take Mariah, visibly uncomfortable during one segment. Years later, she revealed she had suffered a miscarriage not long after that appearance. What was framed at the time as a light, playful moment, forcing someone to either confirm or deny a pregnancy on live television, now looks very different in hindsight. One of the most invasive moments ever broadcast on daytime TV. And it wasn't just one case. Martha Stewart, Katy Perry, guest after guest pushed beyond their comfort zones. Questions asked, lines crossed, information pulled out. Vulnerabilities exposed.
The only guy that saw Stephen Paddock alive, his name is Jesus Campos. He was a guard at Mandalay Bay. He got interviewed nowhere else. You know where he got interviewed in the beginning? Ellen.
Really?
Weird.
And then Joe Rogan came across something in those files that made his blood run cold. Not just who Jeffrey Epstein was, not just the names connected to him, but the possibility of who came after him. Is there another Epstein operating right? Now completely unknown to the public. Not just one, but many. The island didn't shut down. The parties didn't end. The cameras never stopped. And the people above Epstein, they didn't disappear, they simply replaced him. But here's the part most people still aren't connecting. Go back to the moment everything broke open. January 30th, 2026. The Department of Justice releases the largest document dump in the history of the Epstein case. Over 3 million pages, 180,000 images, 2,000 videos, all dropped onto the public internet at once. And suddenly, everyone was searching. Who flew on the plane? Who visited the island? Who was in those rooms? Then, buried deep inside those millions of pages, a name surfaced that nobody expected. Joe Rogan. The internet exploded. People jumped to conclusions immediately. But Rogan addressed it head-on. And what he said matters, because it reveals exactly why these files are so significant. He explained that his name appeared not because of involvement, but because Epstein had tried to reach him. Rogan recalled the moment clearly: confusion, disbelief, and an immediate rejection. He laughed it off, saying there was no chance he would have ever gone, especially after looking Epstein up back in 2017. One of Rogan's own podcast guests, physicist Lawrence Krauss, had reached out to him. Epstein wanted an introduction. Thought Rogan was interesting. Rogan did what most people didn't. He searched the name, found the 2008 conviction for soliciting a minor, and shut it down instantly. That one decision, that instinctive reaction, kept him out of that world entirely. But here's where it shifts. While Rogan was going through those documents to confirm his own story, he stumbled onto something far bigger, something that had nothing to do with him personally, something deeper than Epstein himself. And his reaction wasn't relief. It was dread. Because what he found wasn't just a list of names. It was a pattern, a structure, a system. Something that existed long before Epstein, and something that, by all indications, is still running long after him.
Is there a Jeffrey Epstein right now that we don't know about?
The demand doesn't just disappear. It's the blackmail material, the recordings, the files, the leverage. None of it simply vanishes. When Jeffrey Epstein was gone, someone stepped into the space he left behind. Think about how this operation really worked. It wasn't just about parties. It wasn't just about a private island. Based on what surfaced in the files and the testimony from multiple sources, Epstein's real value was the system he built. He created an environment where powerful men felt comfortable, then compromised, and eventually controlled. Imagine? It is a setting designed to feel exclusive, sophisticated, almost intellectual, brilliant people in the room. Music, influence, high-status individuals everywhere. On the surface, it looks like a perfect social circle. But underneath that surface, something else is quietly embedded. Blackmail exists, it's not obvious. It's woven into the experience itself. Subtle, gradual, you're invited into a room, cameras are already there, and before you realize it, you've crossed a line you can't uncross. That's the blueprint. And blueprints don't disappear, they get reused. The system Epstein operated didn't depend on him staying alive, it depended on the network above him. The money behind it, the international connections, the political protection that kept serious investigations from going too far. All it needed was a new face, a new location, a new setup. And the proof that this transition happened isn't just theory, it's in what didn't happen. Look at who stayed silent after Epstein died. Look at who never testified. Listen to the victims who have spoken out. Many of them have said openly that their fear was never about a man who's already dead. It was about the people around him, the ones still here, the ones who took what he built and kept it running.
There were a lot of people that had very cozy relationships with Epstein, whether they were involved in any of these alleged activities or not, but they don't even care because it's appearances that get you in trouble. So you have to basically put as much distance between yourself and Epstein as you possibly can. And I think in order to do that, a lot of people end up lying about it.
It's precise. In Eyes Wide Shut, the gateway into the network is a high-end social gathering, wealthy, respectable, filled with influential names. That's how Dr. Harford is drawn in, through access given by someone he trusts, someone already. Inside, in Sound of Freedom, the entry point looks different, but the function is the same. A fake talent scout. A woman posing as a modeling agent approaches vulnerable families and offers what appears to be opportunity. Different bait, same trap. Because in both cases, legitimacy is the weapon. The illusion of status, opportunity, and exclusivity lowers. Defenses just enough for the real agenda to unfold. In Eyes Wide Shut. Once you're inside, the system protects itself through shared guilt. Everyone involved becomes part of it. There's no going to the authorities because doing so would mean exposing your own role. The network isn't held together by trust. It's held together by mutual compromise. That is exactly how the operation tied to Jeffrey Epstein has been described. Records were kept, flight logs, photographs, recordings, not for memory, but for leverage. Every powerful individual who passed through that circle became a liability that could be used, if needed. That's not just trafficking, that's a blackmail system with a trafficking element. Built into it, many people maintained close associations with Epstein, whether they were directly involved or not. But in a structure like that, perception alone can be enough to cause damage. Being linked to the wrong person, even indirectly, becomes a risk. So the instinct becomes distance, create as much separation as possible. And in doing so, people start rewriting their own stories. Deny, they minimize, they reshape the narrative to protect themselves. In Sound of Freedom, the same dynamic operates at another level. The network survives not because it's hidden, but because the people who know about it are either part of it, afraid of it, or trapped inside systems too slow and too compromised to respond. And that mirrors the Epstein case as well. Authorities were aware. The FBI knew. The Southern District of New York knew investigations were open, then quietly closed. Agreements were made behind the scenes. One plea deal was so lenient it eventually forced the prosecutor responsible to step down in disgrace. The system that was supposed to dismantle it ended up shielding it, because at a certain point, the system and the network stopped being separate. They became the same thing.
It is an extraction from a piece of skin that came from a young person far, far away, and they somehow figured out how to extract its foreskin from a Korean.
And when the name Ellen DeGeneres came up in that conversation, he went quiet, because what was being described didn't sound like ordinary vanity. It wasn't Botox, it wasn't a strict diet, a personal trainer, or a team of dermatologists. What was being hinted at was something people in Hollywood circles have whispered about for years. Something most were too uncomfortable to say out loud now. To be clear, we're talking about claims and discussions circulating across different platforms, not verified facts. The theory being discussed is that Ellen may have been involved in what some online commentators have labeled youth retention practices, an idea that suggests unusual or extreme methods tied to appearance and status. In some retellings, these claims mention the use of biological materials in ways that sound unsettling when described out of context. On the surface, the clip people point to can be interpreted as nothing more than someone talking about an unconventional skincare treatment. And it's entirely possible that's all it is. But the timing of when that clip resurfaced, combined with everything else that has been said about Ellen in recent months, pushed the conversation into overdrive. People began asking simple but uncomfortable questions. If it's just skincare, why is it described in such an unusual way? Why does the explanation become vague when pressed? Uncertainty is what fueled the reaction. Joe Rogan's response to this particular line of discussion, especially the more extreme interpretations, has been described as a moment of silence, followed by a measured, almost knowing reaction. It's the kind that suggests he wasn't hearing something entirely new, but something that echoed things he may have come across before.
Well, you push in whatever the facialist would like to insert into your pores.
But what is it?
It is an extraction from a piece of skin that came from a young person far, far away, and they somehow figured out how to extract it.
And more security
Why
than
would
most
Ellen
people could
DeGeneres,
dream
a
of.
woman
Why
with
would she
immense
allegedly
wealth,
engage in behavior
career
this
built on
dark? This
likability,
Joe Rogan into
and
stunned
more
silence
security
is
than
that
most
for
people
certain
could ever
people at a
imagine.
certain level of Hollywood
Allegedly be
power, it
linked
was
to
never really
something
about
this
for a
dark,
very long
this
time in
extreme,
very closed
this
rooms.
risky.
Category of allegation when
question.
specific details
Driving
about
the
specific
conversation
rituals
right now.
involving
The answer
biological
gaining
material
traction
from recognized.
of the
The
one
kind
that
that says he's
reportedly
been
left
connecting
Joe
the same
Rogan in
comfortable
stunned
destination
silence
2
is
decades
that
is allegedly at the center of it.
certain
Not because it's
individuals
convenient
at
to
the
put her
highest
there, not
levels
because
of
the internet
Hollywood,
decided
it
she
was
was,
never
and
really
ultimately
about
tried to
money or
warn the world
fame.
about her, have
It
been
was
pointing
about
in this
something
direction
deeper,
for years.
something
And then
more
they went
primal.
quiet. The Epstein files are
Something
pointing
that,
there, and
according
the
to these
powerful people
discussions,
connected to those files
has
are
existed
suddenly
behind
very
closed
far from
doors in
American
powerful
soil.
circles
The
for a
window
very
that
long
protected
time.
Ellen
The
DeGeneres for
idea of
15
staying
years
young,
is closing.
staying
The files are
powerful,
open. The
staying
witnesses are
chosen.
talking. According
There
to sources close
are
to
clips
Harrison
being
Ford, he
circulated
believes that
where
it is
descriptions
fun
of
and
unusual
pays for all her
skincare
crimes.
practices are
Why?
discussed.
Why would a woman with nearly
References
half
to
$1 billion,
materials being
a
extracted
career
and
built on
applied in ways
likability,
that sound
dream
strange
this
when
risky?
taken
The
at
answer
face
that is
value.
gaining serious
On their
traction,
own,
the
they
answer
could be
that sent out the
interpreted
money
as
or the fame. It was
nothing more
about
than
something older,
unconventional
something more
cosmetic
primal,
treatments.
something that the
But when
entertainment
those clips are
industry's most
placed
protected
alongside the
insiders
broader
have
claims being
allegedly been
discussed,
practicing staying young,
they take
staying
on a
powerful,
different
staying
tone.
chosen, a young person
One that
far
raises
away,
more
extracted.
questions
When Joe
than it
Rogan
answers.
encountered this young people
When Rogan
started
encountered
crossing
this
his desk,
category
his
of
reaction was
allegation,
reportedly the
especially
kind
the
of
more
slow,
extreme
heavy silence that his
interpretations
longtime
involving
listeners will
biological
immediately he's
elements.
not hearing this
His
for the
reaction
first
was
time. The
described
kind
as
that
a
says
long,
and
heavy
arriving
silence.
at the same
The kind of
uncomfortable.
silence
Ellen
his
DeGeneres,
audience
the woman who told
recognizes
America to be
instantly.
kind every single afternoon for
shock,
nearly
it's
villain
something
after
new.
her show got
But the
canceled.
quiet
But because the
recognition of
people who
something
knew her, the
familiar,
people who worked
the
with her,
sense that he
loved
had
her,
heard
feared
pieces
her,
of
Anna
this
Hesh
before,
pointed there. And then
connected
she
dots
died.
over
The staffers who
time and
described a
arrived at a
culture of
conclusion
terror
that
pointed there. So where does
isn't
this
easy
end?
to say
Honestly,
out loud,
nobody
and
knows.
in these
And anyone who
discussions,
tells you they
Ellen's
do
name
is
keeps
lying. What we
resurfacing.
do know
Not
is co-star
simply
she
because it's
championed in the
convenient.
90s, the one
Not
who stood up for his friend when the whole industry turned its back on her, is allegedly ready to walk into a room and tell everything he knows. Finally, time
People
Anne
who
gets
were once
justice.
close to her,
and
supported her, or later distanced themselves have pointed in a similar direction over the years. Anne Hetch spoke out and later passed away under tragic circumstances. Former staff described an environment of fear, then went silent. The documents tied to Jeffrey Epstein continue to raise new questions, while individuals connected to those circles have increasingly distanced themselves from the spotlight. So where does it all lead? The truth is, no one can say for certain. Anyone claiming they have all the answers is speculating. But what is clear is this: the protection that surrounded Ellen for years appears to be weakening. Information is surfacing. Conversations are happening. And according to some reports, figures from her past, including Harrison Ford, may be willing to speak more openly about what they know. Whether any of it leads to definitive answers remains to be seen. But for the first time in a long time, the narrative is no longer fully under control.
And he was like, there's probably a bunch of those going on right now that we don't know about.
What people that are
Like that. Like
Of
the
course,
same sort
yeah.
of Jeffrey Epstein type situation, just someone else and
Well, I mean,
doing it
it's-
somewhere else. They just haven't been caught yet.